You're exhausted. You haven't eaten in hours. You finally get a plate of food together, something warm, something that required effort. You carry it to the table. You sit down. You pick up your fork. And before it reaches your mouth, before you take a single bite, your baby cries. Not the build-up cry, not the "I've been uncomfortable for a while" cry. The instant, urgent, "I need you right now" cry. You look over. 2 minutes ago, they were fine, playing quietly, completely content. The second you tried to eat, everything changed. This happens so consistently that parents make jokes about it. Baby telepathy, some kind of food radar, a cosmic conspiracy against parental nutrition. You start eating standing up. You start eating cold food. You start wondering if you'll ever have a hot meal again. And every single time it happens, you think the same thing. Is this on purpose? Does my baby somehow know? Is this normal? Or is something wrong with the timing? With me? With how I'm doing this? Here's what almost no one tells you. That cry, that impossible timing, is not coincidence. It is not your baby being manipulative. It is not random. It is one of the most significant cognitive transitions happening in your baby's developing brain right now. And the reason it happens at mealtimes, specifically when you sit down and shift your attention away, reveals something fundamental about how babies understand reality itself. The obvious explanation is that babies just cry a lot. Sometimes it lines up with when you're eating, sometimes it doesn't. You only notice it when it's inconvenient. This is called confirmation bias. You remember the times it interrupted your meal and forget the times it didn't. It sounds logical. It also happens to be wrong, because researchers who study infant behavior in controlled settings, where every interaction is recorded and time-stamped, have found that this is not random at all. There is a specific developmental window, usually between 4 and 9 months, where babies show a dramatic increase in distress behaviors, specifically when the caregiver's attention visibly shifts away from them, and mealtimes are one of the most consistent triggers. Here's why. To understand what's happening, you have to understand something called object permanence. This is the cognitive ability to know that objects and people continue to exist even when you can't see them. Adults take this completely for granted. You know your car is still in the driveway even when you're inside the house. You know your partner is still at work even when they're not in the room. You know the world persists independently of your direct perception. Babies do not know this. For the first several months of life, a baby's reality operates on a much simpler rule. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. Out of sight is not just out of mind, it is out of reality. The Swiss psychologist Jean Piaget spent decades studying how children develop this understanding. He created simple experiments. Show a baby a toy, let them reach for it, then cover it with a blanket while they're watching. A baby younger than about 4 months will stop reaching. They won't search for it. They won't pull the blanket away. The toy, from their perspective, has ceased to exist. It didn't go somewhere. It vanished. But somewhere between 4 and 8 months, something shifts. The baby starts to search. They pull the blanket. They look for the toy. Object permanence is beginning to develop. They are starting to understand that things can exist even when hidden. But here's the critical part that most explanations of object permanence leave out. This cognitive shift does not happen all at once. It develops in stages. And during the transition, during the months where a baby is starting to grasp that hidden things still exist but hasn't fully integrated that understanding, their world becomes profoundly unstable. Imagine living in a reality where the most important person in your life, your primary source of safety and food and comfort, could simply stop existing the moment they look away. That is what your baby is experiencing, and mealtimes create the perfect condition for this terror to activate. Here's what happens from your baby's perspective. You are holding them, or near them, or playing with them. Your attention is on them. They can see your face. You exist. You are real. You are there. Then you move to the kitchen. You start doing something with your hands. Your face is still visible, still turned toward them periodically. You still exist, but your attention is divided. This is tolerable, uncomfortable, but tolerable. Then you sit down. Your body language changes. Your face turns toward the food. Your attention, your gaze, your focus, all of it shifts completely away from your baby and onto something else. And in that moment, from a brain that is still building object permanence, you have begun to disappear. Not physically, you're still visible. But the you that responds, the you that sees them, the you that exists as a source of safety, that version of you has vanished. And the baby's nervous system, which has been wired by millions of years of evolution to keep the caregiver close, to prevent abandonment, to ensure survival, activates a distress signal, crying, loud, immediate, urgent, because from the baby's perspective, this is an emergency. The person they need most is disappearing, and crying is the only tool they have to make you come back, to make you real again. Researchers at Harvard's Center on the Developing Child studied cortisol responses in infants during brief separations and attention shifts. What they found was that even when the parent remains in the room, visible but not attending to the baby's stress hormone levels rise, not as dramatically as when the parent leaves entirely, but significantly. The baby's body is responding to the attention shift as a form of threat, and mealtimes are particularly powerful triggers because eating requires sustained focus. You're not just glancing away, you're sitting, you're settled. Your entire body language communicates that you're engaged with something else for an extended period. To a baby who hasn't fully developed object permanence, this looks like the beginning of abandonment. Now here's where this gets even more precise. Because it's not just about you looking away, it's about the specific nature of how you look away. Babies are extraordinarily sensitive to gaze direction and attention cues. Research from the University of Cambridge showed that 6-month-old infants can distinguish between an adult who is looking at them and an adult whose eyes are directed just a few degrees off-center. They track not just where your face is, but where your attention is. And eating is one of the only activities where your attention becomes completely absorbed by something at a fixed location that is not your baby. You're not walking around. You're not multitasking in a way that allows quick check-ins. You are sitting, focused, and for those minutes, unreachable. Your baby's cry at that moment is not manipulation. It is communication. It is their brain saying, "You are disappearing, and I don't yet have the cognitive tools to know you're coming back. I need you to prove you still exist. I need you to look at me. I need you to be real again." But there's another layer to this that makes it even more significant. Because this timing, this specific sensitivity to your attention during meals, is not just about object permanence, it's about attachment. In the 1950s, psychologist John Bowlby developed attachment theory, the framework that explains how babies form bonds with caregivers. He argued that attachment behaviors, crying, clinging, following, are not learned, they are innate. Evolution built them into the human brain, because for hundreds of thousands of years, a baby who could not keep their caregiver close did not survive. The baby who cried when the parent moved away, who protested when attention shifted, who demanded proximity, that baby lived. And those instincts are still here, encoded deep in your baby's nervous system. When you sit down to eat, when your attention fully shifts, your baby's attachment system perceives a rupture, not a catastrophic one, not a permanent one, but a rupture nonetheless, and the cry is the repair attempt. It is your baby reaching across that gap, trying to restore connection, trying to pull you back. Researchers at the University of Minnesota found that babies with secure attachments actually cry more during brief separations and attention shifts than babies with insecure attachments, because securely attached babies have learned that crying works, that their caregiver responds, that the rupture can be repaired. The cry is not a sign of poor attachment. It is evidence that the attachment system is functioning exactly as it should. So what happens as object permanence develops? Does the crying stop? Eventually, yes. By around 9 to 12 months, most babies have a solid enough grasp of object permanence that they can tolerate brief attention shifts without distress. They start to understand that you looking at your food does not mean you have ceased to exist. But the transition is gradual. And during the months where this is developing, where your baby is on the edge of understanding but not quite there, the mealtime crying can actually intensify. Because now they understand enough to know you're choosing to look away, but not enough to trust that you're still fully present. Developmental psychologists call this the peekaboo paradox. Babies love peekaboo because it's a safe way to practice object permanence. You disappear behind your hands, you reappear, you prove that hidden things come back. But outside of play, when you disappear into your meal, into your phone, into anything that takes your attention, the game stops being fun. It becomes a test they're not ready to pass. Now I need to tell you about the warning signs. Because while this mealtime crying is completely normal during the object permanence development window, there are patterns that deserve attention. If your baby shows extreme, inconsolable distress at any attention shift, if they cannot be soothed even when you pick them up, If the crying escalates into panic that lasts long after you've returned your attention to them, that may indicate heightened separation anxiety that goes beyond typical development. Similarly, if a baby shows no distress at attention shifts, if they seem completely indifferent to whether you're focused on them or not, that can sometimes indicate the opposite problem, avoidant attachment, where the baby has learned that their bids for attention don't work, so they've stopped making them. The healthy pattern is the one that feels frustrating but manageable. Your baby cries when you shift attention. You respond, they calm, the cycle completes. So the next time you sit down to eat and your baby immediately cries, remember what's actually happening. They are not trying to sabotage your meal. They are not testing you. They are not being difficult. They are experiencing a moment of genuine distress as their developing brain tries to make sense of a world where the most important person can be visible but unreachable, where attention can shift and they don't yet know if it will come back, where you can still be in the room but feel to them like you've started to disappear. And the cry is not a problem to fix. It is a developmental milestone. It is your baby's brain building the cognitive architecture that will eventually allow them to trust that you exist even when you're not looking. That love persists even when attention shifts. That connection is not contingent on constant visibility. You are not failing because your baby cries when you eat. You are succeeding because that cry means your baby knows you matter, that your attention is valuable, that your presence is the foundation of their world. And one day, sooner than it feels right now, they will sit across from you at that same table, eating their own meal, and they won't cry when you look away, because they will have learned, through thousands of small moments like this one, that you are permanent, that you exist even when you're focused elsewhere, that you always come back. But for now, in this exhausting, relentless stage, the cry at mealtime is your baby saying something most adults spend their whole lives trying to articulate. When I can't see you seeing me, I'm afraid I've lost you, and I need you to prove I haven't. If this changed how you see those impossible mealtimes, subscribe and drop a comment. Does your baby do this? Do they cry the second you sit down to eat? Because I want to know. And if you want to understand why your baby suddenly hates tummy time after loving it for weeks, and what that shift reveals about their developing sense of autonomy, that's the next video.